I'm going to get called out for this one. I know it. I am a lad truther. 49-year-old, 50-year-old Matt Stafford. He must be somewhere around there by now. No vertebrae left in his back. Trailers come in to have these alternative therapies for him during training
Yeah,
camp just so he can practice.
yeah. Just starting off, I don't care about Jalen Warren. I'll be the first to say it. I'm super low on him for Dynasty. That's all we need to say about Jalen Warren. I will move on. Um,
Welcome in, everyone, to Dynasty Trading Room. Today, Joe and I have a really exciting episode that we're calling the Dynasty Trading War Room. Today, we're going head to head with a number of Dynasty trades submitted by viewers and our own writing staff over at FTR. So, we're going to go back and forth today, arguing our sides of these trades that has been decided that we disagree on. Um, for the purpose of this episode, all trades will be in the context of a 12-team superflex, no tight end premium, a start 10 league, so 3 wide receivers and 3 flex, and then just a standard 12 bench, 3 taxi, 3 IR slot situation for the purposes of the trades we'll be discussing today. All right, for the first trade that we are going head to head today on, we have Lad McConkey, David Montgomery, and a 2026 first in exchange for Ashton Ginty, Terry McLaurin, and a 2027 first. So Joe will get us started off here with his argument.
yeah, so I picked the Terry McLaurin, Ashton Genty 2027 first side, obviously. For me, obviously, some breaking news today. Terry McLaurin did sign a 3-year, $96 million extension. Some big money for him that locks him into Washington in that in that dynamic passing offense long term with Jaden Daniels. Obviously, he was so good as a deep threat last year, scored a plethora of touchdowns. So that's a really big buff for me in this trade. You know, I'm sure when it was proposed, there was still some rumors about where he could be traded. We didn't exactly know what his situation would be by the start of the season, but now he's locked down in Washington. We know he's going to be in that offense where he thrived so well last year. So that just is a big boost this trade for me on that side. And you're also getting the 101 for rookie drafts this year. You're getting Ashton Genty, who is a generational prospect at running back. I mean, elite contact balance, speed, really great ability with physicality. His juke moves are really good. Just a home run hitting running back. And then that 2027 first, that 27 class is looking really stacked so far. You have guys like Jeremiah Smith, Ryan Williams, several other players that could just dominate college football over the next couple of years. Obviously, we don't know if Arch Manning's going to come out this year. Maybe he comes out in 2027. That can make it even more stacked. So I think this trade overwhelmingly, in my opinion, I think the Terry Genty first side is really strong just because of some circumstances. I think Genty's going to be a workhorse right off the bat. I think you're going to get obviously a lot of production from it, and then the dynasty value at the point where he's 20, 21 years old. He's still extremely young for a player at his position. Obviously got a lot of tread in his tires at Boise State, but I think he's a good enough prospect where he's going to have a very long, successful career in Las Vegas. And then McLaurin obviously has a great quarterback in that offense finally after all those years, and that has the extension locking him down long term. And Dynasty, that's super important, obviously. You want to know where your player's going even after this year. So that's the side I picked. I thought it was really solid on all 3 assets.
You make great arguments, and it hurts me to argue against my guy, Terry McLaurin, and I am very relieved to see that he got that extension.
Yep.
But when we're talking about this trade, I really want to focus on the top 2 guys in this trade, and that's Lad McConkey and Ashton Ginty, because the star players are what really make your fantasy team, that really put you over the edge when it comes to the playoffs, the playoff weeks. So Lad McConkey has 1 year under his belt in the NFL, and it was an incredibly impressive year. You look at, so I filtered down the stats to look at the wide receivers that had over 100 targets last year during the regular season. There were only 29 wide receivers in the NFL on that list, and Lad McConkey was one of them. That alone is a super impressive stat as a rookie to be on that list. But additionally, what's really impressive to me is that Lad came in at 4th on that list in receiving percentage, so the percentage of targets his way that he brought in. And he was also 7th in yards per reception. So not only was he bringing in everything thrown his way, but he was getting big yardage off of these plays. These weren't little dump offs, these were big gaining plays. The only other wide receiver to rank in the top 10 in each of those stats among those 29 wide receivers, Jamar Chase. And And Ladd ranked above him in both of those stats. So that shows what kind of elite company he is in. He just has this ability that I see to take this next step and be one of those top 5 wide receivers in Dynasty that's going first round in startups. And to me, that's just that we've already seen production from Ladd in the NFL, and it makes a big difference for me. I'm not going to argue that Ashton Ginty is a bad prospect. I love the prospect. He's great. Loved what he did in college. The one concern is he didn't necessarily play a lot of top competition, so there's still some issues. Could it not translate perfectly to the NFL? That's possible.
Sure.
Even then, I'm going to err on the side of the guy that I've seen do it in the NFL, and that's why I'm going with the Ladd side of this trade. Just quickly on the rest of the trade, I think when you have these star guys, that's what you really need to focus on. Terry McLaurin and David Montgomery are probably in the same area of value. I'm definitely going to give the edge to Terry McLaurin, but that's made up for by the 2026 over the 2027 first. I'm taking the earlier pick every single day. I know people are saying that maybe 2026 isn't as valuable as 2027. When it comes down to the 2026 draft, people are going to get prospect fever. They're going to get hyped on these guys no matter who it is. There are good prospects in this class. So I'm taking the 2026 first with an extra year in the NFL before that 2027 class even hits the field.
No, I think that's totally fair. I think a lot of the points you made, especially with McConkey, are totally legit, honestly. Just as a rebuttal, you talked a lot about the superstars you want to have in your team. I think we've seen that Ashton Genty, obviously with the translation concerns are there, but he has overall running back potential, even maybe this year. He's going in the first round of a lot of redraft fantasy drafts. He put up over 2,600 rushing yards in his final year of college at Boise State. We haven't seen those numbers for quite a long time. And as far as Terry McLaurin, I predict him to have maybe a similar year production-wise this season to Ladd McConkey. Obviously, I don't think he's going to be as good as Ladd McConkey, but maybe close to that same tier if he continues that chemistry with Jaden Daniels. Obviously, the touchdown number may go down. You may see that as far as touchdown regression, but I think he still can be very productive in terms of yards. And then the 2027 first, you mentioned the prospect fever. I totally agree. Those picks that are coming even sooner are more valuable, obviously, than the later picks. But maybe one thing to consider is that the hype of Ryan Williams and Jeremiah Smith, those two prospects that are just taking over college football, and even if Arch Manning decides to hold out another year at Texas, not hold out, but wait another year to declare for the NFL draft, maybe that in itself could trump this prospect fever of having a pick a year earlier, just because the hype around the players that are going in that 2027 class. So I think you could go either way in this trade. I definitely see your side. I love Ladd McConkey. I think he's still going to be very productive, even with Keenan Allen this year back in the offense. So I think he's an awesome dynasty asset going forward. But just the superstardom of Genty, just the potential that he presents, and then getting that pick in a year that could be star-studded, along with Terry McLaurin, who I think is just a fantastic wide receiver now locked in. That's just something that I can't turn down.
Yeah, I get it with Ginty. It's a tantalizing prospect that when you can get the guy that could be that wide or that running back number 1 overall in Dynasty, you want to get your hands on that. Now, I will just say that we've seen some of these rookie running backs come in, and I'm not saying that Ginty won't return on that eventually in his career, but this is a Raiders team that there's a lot of question marks still. Geno Smith isn't your franchise quarterback. We've seen Chip Kelly's offenses fail in the NFL more often than they've succeeded. I've seen it with Ladd. I know the situation. I know that he has good coaching, a franchise quarterback, and people that I respect in the industry have talked about his film in ways that really make me confident. Matt Harmon over at Reception Perception is one of those. He puts together these success rate by route charts. He charts players' films, and Ladd McConkey's chart is just green. It's green everywhere. He wins on all routes. He's just successful all over the field, and when he's one of Matt Harmon's guys in reception perceptions metrics, that's something I'm going to follow, and I think that he could have a much more robust value after after Ginty's first year in the league and Ladd's second year in the league.
Yeah.
So I'm going to capitalize on that early value.
We can go and move on to our second trade. The two sides of this, on the one side we have Tyrone Tracy Jr., Harold Fannin, the rookie tight end for the Browns, and then a 2027 first-round pick. And on the other side we have Kenneth Walker, running back for the Seattle Seahawks. So, Calvin, you want to kick us off?
Absolutely. So this second trade is super interesting to me. I liked Tyrone Tracy's film last year. I thought it was pretty good. I think people are writing him off too much as just a guy in that backfield. Uh, he's someone that only had 1 year of college experience as a running back, and now only 1 year in the NFL as a running back. So that's because he was a converted wide receiver in college. There's a chance that he isn't done developing yet. I know he was an older prospect coming in, but that limited experience as a running back, I think he could take that next step. And I've been a certified Cam Scadaboo hater throughout the process. I was a little lower on him. He went in the fourth round. That's not top capital. I think they might have gone a little earlier if they really were intent on replacing Tracy. Harold Fannin, I think he's in a perfect spot here in Cleveland. Cleveland uses their tight ends ideally for Harold Fannin because Harold Fannin isn't an inline blocking tight end. So a couple metrics that show that. The Browns had the highest pass rate out of 12 personnel, so two tight ends on the field, last year of any NFL team. So when they have those two tight ends on the field, and Harold Fannin is set to be that second tight end with Njoku, they're passing the ball a lot. That bodes very well for his fantasy projections. They also ranked eighth in tight end routes out of the slot, so that's somewhere that Harold Fannin could really succeed. And they did that with Njoku, who is a good inline tight end, so they didn't need to put him out in the slot. But it's something Stefanski likes to do, is get those tight ends out in space and use them dynamically in his offenses. And probably the main focus of this trade for me is just this 2027 first. If this is a top three pick, you sold me on the 2027 first on that first trade. So if this is a top three pick and one of those guys that you mentioned, a Jeremiah Smith or an Arch Manning, that's something I'm taking over Ken Walker straight up.
Yeah.
Like absolutely. And that's a 1 in 4 chance right there of getting a top three pick. If you look just at this last year's draft class, Ashton Genty, Cam Ward, Amarian Hampton, Tet McMillan, Travis Hunter, Trevion Henderson, all of those guys are going over Ken Walker in dynasty value right now. So next year, Ken Walker's a year older. 2 years from now, he's 2 years older. Whoever you're getting in that first round of 2027 is going to be more valuable than Ken Walker. Obviously, you get the current production with Walker over these next 2 years that can help you contend. But I think just the value of that 2027 first is just too much to give up for an injury-prone Walker.
No, totally fair. And like this trade with the last one, it's not that I see a problem with the side you took. I like the assets on that side. I like Tracy. I don't expect Scadaboo to take a ton of work from this year. I think it's going to be kind of a split backfield situation. And then Phantom was a prospect I really, really liked him out of Bowling Green with that production. And of course, the 27 first, like I argued last, could be extremely valuable. Obviously, we don't know if it's early or late on this specific trade. It's pretty ambiguous. But we can assume that the player we're getting is pretty valuable for Dynasty. The reason I took Ken Walker in this trade, and obviously, like you said, we're getting the production right now instead of the value a couple years down the line, is because I'm willing to take the bet that he could be maybe even a top 10 running back over the next couple of years because of the situation around him. Obviously, last season, the offensive environment was not great. They fired their offensive coordinator after last year. They had one of the worst offensive lines in the entire NFL. The passing game wasn't exactly perfect to space out the running game, so the box was stacked sometimes. But just looking at a couple PFF advanced stats here, Kenneth Walker had a 91.3 PFF rushing grade, which was fourth highest in the entire NFL. That's not off of some sample size. That's the entire NFL over the course of the entire season. Among ball carriers with at least 50 rush attempts last year, Walker ranked third in the PFF elusiveness rating. We saw him breaking tackles constantly, both with physicality and just general elusiveness, breaking off tackles with jukes. In just 11 games in 2024, Kenneth Walker managed to finish as a top 30 running back. There's not a lot of running backs that can do that. His per game value was pretty solid, even with that really bad offensive line, and it's looking up. The offensive line looked a bit better this season with Gray Zabel in at guard, I believe, who was their first round pick out of North Dakota State. Walker also had his most productive year as a receiver in 2024. You're getting PPR value again in just 11 games. It was his most productive season. He achieved career highs in targets, receptions, and receiving yards. So I think things are just trending up for him. People think that Zach Charbonnet is going to eat into his work. I don't buy that at all. I'm a really big fan of Walker this year, but obviously with that high ceiling comes the really low floor with that injury concern. He's had a few injuries throughout his career that's really limited his availability. So this is a huge risk on my side. I totally admit that. It could totally backfire. but I'm willing to take that because I think Walker at his peak again. I'm not saying he's going to be this, but at his peak could be a top 5 running back production wise in the NFL. He's extremely talented on the field. He is a home run hitter. He's physical. He's just a beast overall. He's one of those elite Seattle running backs we've seen in the past in terms of talent. It's just if he can stay on the field to prove it, if the offensive line can make big enough holes for him to get some rushing lanes together. So I expect with Clint Kubiak, they're going to run the ball a lot more at offensive coordinator with this new offensive philosophy they're bringing in. Overall, I just think he's going to be a very solid running back and has that ceiling with that low floor, but has that ceiling to be elite the next couple of years.
I totally agree with you on Walker. I like the Clint Kubiak addition to their coaching staff. I think with Charbonnet and Ken Walker in this scheme, you could really see some explosive runs, a really great run offense, and we saw a hint of that in the preseason. That just they look dominant in the run game. I know it's preseason, but
Yeah,
still getting hints
sure.
of this offense is quite exciting. And I agree. Ken Walker has a chance he could put up an RB1 season in this offense if he stays healthy. But there it is. That is a
Yep.
huge if he can stay healthy. I haven't seen it yet this far into his career. And another thing that comes in is Zach Charbonnet might be the best backup running back in the entire NFL. When you have the best backup running back in the entire NFL, who has a better success rate too, he's not as explosive as Walker, but he's great at just picking up yards, and you have a super injury prone number 1 running back, I can see this turning into more of a split backfield and Ken Walker being just his touches kind of monitored more this year, and allow Charbonnet to thrive beside him rather than behind him in the pecking order. And that's something that I think scares me just enough for me to lean the future value on that 2027 pick.
No, totally fair. Again, that pick is super valuable. And taking Kenneth Walker is a very high risk investment. You cannot argue that with the availability concerns. But all I'm counting on is maybe just 1 year in which he plays pretty much all the games. Hopefully, he only played 11 last year, so obviously that hurt his production. But I'm just thinking all I need is maybe 1 year of really impressive dynasty production from a young running back, and maybe it could return value in that sense. If you guys are enjoying the video, don't forget to like and subscribe for Dynasty advice all season long. And don't forget to, in the comments, put down your votes for each side of the trade. If you think we got it wrong, which one of us did. If you think our takes are terrible, just put down below which side of each trade you would take in the comments below.
All right, on to our third trade now. And for this one, we have Michael Penix and DJ Moore on one side for CJ Stroud on the other. I'll let Joe kick it off on this one.
Yeah, so I took the CJ Stroud side, and overall, I think you're seeing a guy who, yes, has struggled because of the woes of that offensive line. They were one of the worst in football, like I just talked about with the Seahawks. The Texans have one of the worst offensive lines in football last season, and it really hurt CJ Stroud in his sophomore year. The public opinion on him kind of tanked after a really elite rookie year, one of the best we've ever seen, if I can say that. But, I mean, Stroud, you're looking at a guy who's extremely talented. We saw it during his rookie year. His job security is kind of top tier because the issues he's faced are mostly, not all, but mostly on the situation around him. That offensive line, obviously awful. But we saw them bring in a couple new weapons this offseason. You obviously have Nico Collins. He's one of the best wide receivers in football when he can stay on the field. We have Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel, both rookie wide receivers out of Iowa State. Two prospects I liked a lot. Higgins, that physical receiver, Noel, that shifty guy to the slot that can make some really nice catches deep down the field. But then when you look at the other side of the trade, there's a bit more concern for me. Michael Penix, I think, can be a very good quarterback, but we haven't seen enough of him yet to really make a true prediction on how he's going to play this season. I think, obviously, the ceiling is there for him to be their long-term starter, for him to be a franchise guy, but we haven't seen enough compared to Stroud, who had a really strong rookie year and just struggled because of his offensive environment. And then DJ Moore is a player I like, but he is also 27, getting up there in years. He's not old by any means, obviously, don't take what I'm saying, but there are other targets in this offense, including Rome Odunze, Colston Level, and even DeAndre Swift gets some targets that I don't think DJ Moore is going to be the clear-cut one. I think he's probably going to get the most targets, but there are some other guys that are definitely going to take some receiving volume away this season. So DJ Moore isn't probably going to be a top 12 wide receiver for the rest of his career if he stays on the Bears, because I do expect Rome Odunze and Colston Level to continue to develop and have very productive careers as well. Those are two prospects I like coming out a lot. And CJ Stroud, I just view as the safer option. his situation is bound to get better over time. There's no way that this offensive line is going to be horrible for 5 years in a row. And again, in Dynasty, you're betting on that long game. Maybe the offensive line sucks again this year and Stroud has another sucky season. But maybe in a couple years down the line they fix it and he has maybe an MVP caliber season. Again, you never know. But I'm taking the safety and the job security of Stroud here over an unknown in Michael Penix relatively, and DJ Moore is a talented receiver with a lot of competition in the offense.
Yeah, you made great points there, and this is hard for me because I really like CJ Stroud. I think he's a great quarterback, and I love watching their games,
Yeah,
except for that their offensive line can't block anything.
true.
Like, it is just so bad, and you pointed out rightfully that bad situation last year, but I think it might get worse this year.
Yeah,
You look at their starting O-line that's projected for this year, and you lose your best pass blocker at left tackle in Tunsil, who I'm happy to have on my Washington Commanders.
fair.
And you don't replace him. Like, Cam Robinson is fine. There's nothing wrong there. But as you can see on the graphic, he didn't have nearly that pass blocking grade that Tunsil had. And the rest of the additions they made, you've got a second round rookie playing right tackle. So on both ends of the line, there's some question marks there, if not just downright downgrades from last year and an already bad season. At center, you have a guy who's played 2 games in his career. They do still have Jarrett Patterson there, I believe, so he could end up starting games as well. But right now, if Jake Andrews does start, that's a huge question mark. And just your guards, there's not a huge improvement there as well. So just across the offensive line, I could see this being, again, the worst offensive line in the league, and possibly even worse than last year.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily stop there either. The situation at wide receiver last year, you had Stephon Diggs, Tank Dell to join in with Nico Collins. Now, I know they all missed time at points last year, but you had 3 really good wide receivers last year. This year, Nico Collins is there again, but we know his injury history. But he's joined by rookies and probably the husk of Christian Kirk. I don't know how much is left in his game.
Sure.
And Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel could have great careers, but relying on them as rookies to hold up this offense that's already struggling on the offensive line, and now a run game that might be relying on Nick Chubb to be taking the majority of your carries off back-to-back huge injuries. There's too many bad things going on right now that long-term I like CJ Stroud so much more than Michael Penix, but when it comes to these pocket passers, you're really looking at year to year who exceeds on touchdowns. Maybe for the real NFL, I'm taking CJ Stroud, obviously. But when it comes to fantasy, anyone can overproduce on touchdowns. And I'm going to bet on the offensive line and surrounding talent around Michael Penix over CJ Stroud for this season, and then maximize that value on Penix after the season and sell him. Who knows? Maybe I can get him 1-for-1 for CJ Stroud after another bad year by that Texans O-line and an overperforming year by Penix on touchdowns.
No, that's fair. That secondary trade could be a huge win for you if you're able to net that back in a 1-for-1. I didn't even think about that. So great strategy there. But no, Stroud. I think those are very good points. Stroud, that offensive line could be absolutely horrible this year. But for me, if I have him on my dynasty team, I'm in it for the long haul. Obviously, this year, I agree that offensive line is going to be atrocious. Ariante Ursary, the rookie, is a guy I like and I think could develop into a good talent, but that obviously isn't going to save the entire offensive line. I would just think that no bad offensive line situation can last forever. And again, like I said, in dynasty, you're betting on the long game. And I think the thing they're going to attack this offseason, hopefully this next offseason with general manager Nick Caserio, the offensive line is the biggest glaring need, and I think absolutely will be the biggest glaring need by the next offseason, barring a couple huge breakouts by some guys on that line. So I think that will be their plan of attack, hopefully next offseason. We thought it would be this offseason, didn't end up being that way. But I think eventually that situation will improve.
No, that's fair. Long-term CJ Stroud is, if he has another bad season, he's going to be like my top buy going into next year. So I totally understand that. It's just this year that worries me. I just have to put a little plug in for DJ Moore because I think this guy has gotten more hate than any fantasy wide receiver over the years. It's just, he went so suddenly from, he's this young ascending great wide receiver that just has bad quarterback play to, this guy's going to get replaced. This guy's bad attitude. We heard it all last year, and yes, he had Rome Odunze come in, they had Keenan Allen come in, and that was supposed to just push him totally out of the offense. Nope, another wide receiver two season. That's 6 straight wide receiver two seasons for DJ Moore through bad quarterback play, through terrible play calling. Like he just it's consistent with DJ Moore. And like you said, he's only 27. This isn't an old guy.
Nope.
This isn't Mike Evans out there and in his 30s. No, 27 years old. Um, it is possible. I'm a huge Loveland fan, so it's possible that maybe this is the year that he kind of gets pushed out of that offense. But if that's the case, they're trading him. They're not just letting him sit on the bench making $30 million a year. They're going to move him, and it's going to be a team that needs a wide receiver to add him. And I think that would be a good situation and something that could increase his value as well.
We can move on to our next trade. On one side here, again, we have a reoccurring character in the series. We have Ladd McConkey, and then Cleveland Browns wide receiver Jerry Jeudy, as well as a 2026 second-round pick. On the other side, we have Rams wide receiver Puka Nacua, and then Pittsburgh running back Jaylen Warren. Calvin, kick us off.
I'm going to get called out for this one. I know it. I am a Ladd truther. I just believe in this guy. He's so good. And that's not to say none of this argument is Puka is not a good wide receiver. I just have these guys like side by side in my rankings. I think they have very similar abilities. I think that obviously we've seen Puka have the better production so far. He's put up bigger numbers than Ladd did in his rookie season, and that's totally fine. I'm looking at the future, and what I see in the future is a young Justin Herbert in his prime, a great quarterback that's going to continue to feed Ladd McConkey targets. What I see with Puka Nacua is 49-year-old, 50-year-old Matt Stafford. He must be somewhere around there by now. A guy who has no vertebrae left in his back. This guy's got like trailers come in to have these alternative therapies for him during training camp just so he can practice.
Yeah.
Like I think Matt Stafford has the Super Bowl and he's on the way out. And I love Matt Stafford, great quarterback, but I don't know how much production he has left with Puka Nacua. And when I'm looking at that future quarterback situation, I'm a little worried for that, where I'm not worried at all with Ladd McConkey. Another thing with Ladd is if you look at this graphic here, Ladd has all of the metrics that are showing a big breakout coming. This guy was bringing in great production as a rookie on very difficult plays, on very difficult catches. Like I mentioned earlier, the 14 yards per reception, that's a huge number. 10.2 average depth of target, and 13 contested catches. These are all significantly higher than Puka's numbers, showing that Puka's getting the easy stuff already. His production is there because they're using him as that easy go-to in the offense, and kudos to McVay for that. He's obviously an amazing play caller.
Yep.
Ladd was a rookie last year. He wasn't expected to be the central focus point of the offense. I think now he is. He's shown what he can do on the difficult stuff. Now it's time to just get the ball into his hands, and I think that's going to be a central part of the offense this year and allow him to take that leap into the elite tier of wide receivers. So that's why it always comes back down to Ladd for me. Jerry Jeudy, I'm not a fan of. Him and Jaylen Warren, like it's whatever.
Yep.
This when we're talking about these top guys, it's whatever. So I'll take that 2026 second to make up the value on whatever your perceived difference is between Puka Nacua and Ladd McConkey, and for me, it's minimal.
Just starting off, I don't care about Jaylen Warren. I'll be the first to say it. I'm super low on him for Dynasty and even for redraft this year. I think Caleb Johnson's the future. That's all we need to say about Jaylen Warren. I will move on. As far as Puka Nacua goes, on my side of things, all we've seen him do is produce an elite level for fantasy. 88.4 yards per game over his entire career so far, over basically a year and a half because he was injured so much last year. That's third in NFL history, not just the NFL last year, but in NFL history. So he is just a trailblazer as far as that per game production, that efficiency that he's been able to do so far in McVay's offense. 990 receiving yards in only 11 games last year. I mean, people expected him to be very slow coming back from the injury, and he responded by just being one of the best wide receivers in all fantasy football for the rest of the season after he came back from the knee. So, again, 11 games, almost 1,000 yards after coming back from an injury. Super impressive to me. And then when I look at the other side of the trade, I love Lad McConkey. I think he's going to be a great wide receiver, but I consider Puka Nacua one of those elite dynasty assets. He's still very young, hasn't even been extended yet. I think he's absolutely going to be, obviously. But then when you look at the quarterback situation, like you said, Justin Herbert is a franchise quarterback in the prime of his career. I will not argue that. He's such a good player. But I trust the Rams front office, who is so good at drafting, who is so good at bringing in talent to replace Matt Stafford when the time comes. Obviously, maybe there's going to be a buffer year where they have just a bridge quarterback, and I'm willing to eat that when I have Puka Nacua on my team, who is unbelievably efficient and elite in terms of fantasy football production. But I trust the Rams front office to bring in the talent necessary to capitalize on Nakua's elite talent in his extension years when their Super Bowl window is open yet again, which I think it absolutely will be within the next few years with all those young defensive studs they have. I think after Matt Stafford's retirement, that'll be their first order of action. So I do trust them to bring in a good quarterback afterwards. And Puka Nacua, again, is just an elite dynasty wide receiver. Very young, very productive. And anytime he's on the field, which is the big if, he is a top 5 wide receiver in football.
How do you undercut my argument on this is bring up Puka's production stats. It's just I had to brush over it because they're impressive. Like he's a great wide receiver. He's done amazing things, unbelievable, elite production so far in his career. And the other thing's McVay. I agree with you. Yes, Matt Stafford is on his way out, but if there's anyone who's going to elevate their quarterback play, I think McVay's on that short list of guys, along with maybe like a Shanahan and a KOC over in Minnesota. So, yeah, I totally am with you on those arguments. It's hard to argue against Puka Nacua. If I had to make any little nitpick at his game, it's that he hasn't produced on touchdowns thus far in his career. It's not to say he can't. He's too skilled a receiver to never be able to produce on the touchdown front there. But I don't think this is the year. They replaced Cooper Kupp with Devontae Adams. Like, you had one of the best touchdown guys in the league in Cooper Kupp, and everyone's like, oh, now that he's gone, yeah, you can give Puka those touchdowns. No, they bring in the next best guy at getting into the end zone, and that's Devontae Adams. So I think this is another year where Puka's going to see more like that 5-6 touchdown mark, and that's something that's just going to keep his value low enough that I think Lad can catch up and get into that same tier. And like we said, there's a little more value outside of these two guys on the Lad side, and that's what's going to keep me there on this trade.
Yeah,
I hope.
I won't argue with you there. Lad McConkey, a elite dynasty asset. Maybe just a slight tier down from Puka Nacua, but I totally see where you're coming from. Just the production of Puka is something I just can't argue with. And again, I'm betting on the risky side here. The risk is if they replace Matt Stafford at quarterback with a guy maybe of equal talent, probably not at first, but that's the beauty of Dynasty. It's down the road, so we'll see where it goes.
Now let's move on to our last trade here, our 5th trade of this episode. And with that, we have Jackson Dart, Brandon Ayuk, and a 2026 first on one side, and on the other, Rashee Rice. Yep. So I'm going to let you start this one off, Joe.
Sure. This is one of the trades where I do have a bit of a problem with who's going on the other side of the trade. I took the Rashee Rice side. Jackson Dart, I'm not a Jackson Dart hater. I think he can end up being a fine quarterback. Obviously, showed up pretty well this preseason. They didn't ask him to do too much, but he did have a very good preseason in terms of statistics. So I think he could definitely end up being a solid quarterback for the Giants in the future. Obviously, won't start right away, but again, this is Superflex like we said, so the value on quarterbacks is inflated, and he could be a very solid quarterback. Brandon Ayuk is the asset I have the most trouble with in this trade. Obviously, he's locked into the 49ers with that contract, but just a really bad knee injury last year. It wasn't just the ACL. He tore multiple ligaments in that knee, so I'm not willing to bet on production similar to what he had earlier in his career. I think he could definitely bounce back to being a solid receiver, but I don't think he's going to be that wide receiver one for them again. I think he's going to have trouble rehabbing from that knee injury. I think it's going to be a while before he's 100% this season, and obviously I think that may end up affecting him for the rest of his career. I'm not saying it's a career-ending injury, I'm not saying he won't produce, but just maybe not to quite the same level that he was pre-knee injury. And then we have Rashee Rice. I'm not a huge fan of him on a redraft level because of that suspension that could be coming in. But in Dynasty, it doesn't look like the suspension is going to be like some huge thing. It's probably going to take up a decent chunk of this season. But when you're looking at Dynasty, obviously a multi-year landscape. Rashee Rice, obviously, some legal trouble. He's going to battle through that this year, and hopefully it will be cleaned up by the time 2026 rolls around. And when it does, in fact, roll around, you're getting a very good wide receiver and a top-tier offense. We're talking Kansas City Chiefs, wide receiver one with Patrick Mahomes at the helm. In just 4 games in 2024, before that ACL tear, 24 receptions off 29 targets, 288 yards, and 2 receiving touchdowns. Almost 300 yards in 4 games is super impressive, especially coming off that rookie year where he was very solid, almost 1,000 yards in that Super Bowl winning season for the Chiefs. I think you're betting on the ceiling here with Rashee Rice. I think he could be maybe a top 10 wide receiver when he's healthy again, when he's not suspended. So 2026 and on is when I'm betting on his value if he gets this whole situation cleared up. I think his value for me right now is definitely above Brandon Ayuk, who's dealing with that rehabbing the injury. I think Jackson Dart is going to be a solid, okay quarterback, but even that I don't think rivals the value of Rashee Rice. And the 2026 first could be extremely valuable, but the ambiguity of where it's going to be in the round, we don't exactly know. If it's a late first, I'm definitely taking Rice here. If it's like a top 2 or 3 pick, then I'm going to have a bit more hesitance on which side of the trade I'm taking. So obviously you take that into account. But Rice has the chance, I'm not saying he's going to be, but has the chance to be one of the elite wide receivers in football with Patrick Mahomes in this elite Andy Reid offense that has schemed so well. So I'm just willing to see where it goes.
It's scary to take the package side of any of these trades because, yes, Rashee Rice is obviously the most valuable asset here. He has that ability to be the wide receiver one overall for a Patrick Mahomes offense. But Patrick Mahomes offenses are starting to become this kind of like nostalgic dream feeling. Like, oh, I remember when Patrick Mahomes was throwing for 40 touchdowns, 50 touchdowns. Like, he was that guy. It hasn't happened recently. These last couple of years, we haven't seen those huge Chiefs offenses. We've seen a more measured approach by them. Mahomes isn't throwing the ball downfield to the same rate since Tyreek Hill left, Travis Kelce getting older. Now, maybe Rashee Rice can be the replacement for that, but that's not how they use him. What he's been really effective is down low, kind of underneath, picking up a lot of... In a full PPR league, I might lean more towards this side, but in this half PPR league, I think it's just not necessarily that guaranteed wide receiver one season in, season out that I'm going to need to make up for all the value that I see on the other side. And I'll get into that now because Jackson Dart is someone that I think could just be a great quarterback. I really liked his tape in college. I think he has an amazing arm for those deep balls downfield. He has a strong arm and good touch, and that combo is what I'm looking for in prospects. And he has it. He has it in spades. When you pair that up with Malik Neighbors down the field, I think that's something that could just be Justin Jefferson and Kirk Cousins. Even if Dart isn't a superstar talent, he can just be that great game manager who has enough of an arm to make some splash plays throughout the season. Brandon Ayuk, yes, this season's going to be tough. It's going to be coming back from the injury. It's going to be slow. I think with how injury recoveries have changed over the years, how medicine's progressed, I think that he can get back to that level. He's only 27 years old. He's not an old guy, and that's usually a good sign that you can get back that level of production. And he was a wide receiver 14 and 15 in back-to-back seasons before this injury. Like, this is a fringe wide receiver one kind of guy on an offense that I think you want to get tons of pieces of. And by the time he's coming back, George Kittle's getting older, CMC's getting older, Kyle Shanahan's still there, Brock Purdy's still there, and I think that he can be the engine of this offense eventually once he comes back. And you can't even lean on the, well, what about this year? Because Rashee Rice is probably going to miss a lot of time with that suspension. So I think when you're just pushing forward to 2026 with this trade anyways, you have a rookie incoming that even if you just sell high on the rookie hype, I think that's super valuable. And then you have maybe Brandon Ayuk comes back into that like solid wide receiver 2 with wide receiver 1 upside in 2026.
No, that's fair. I totally understand all your points in that trade, especially with the Brandon Ayuk just a 1-year outlook part, like you said. The only thing I would say is Ricky Pearsall's on a lot of breakout candidate lists. I'm not saying that he's a huge buy in Dynasty or whatever, but he could definitely take a larger piece of the pie than he did last year, obviously. Deebo Samuel is no longer in the offense, but I think George Kittle has at least a few more good, productive years left in him before he reaches that true veteran area of his career. But Ricky Pearsall, we could see a breakout from this year. Obviously, he's going to be the wide receiver one until Brandon Ayuk comes back. He and Brock Purdy could develop a lot of chemistry in that time. So a lot of things are up in the air. I think more so with Ayuk than Rashee Rice. And obviously the injury to Ayuk was worse as well. But I see what you're saying with the suspension with Rice. Totally fair point as well. And I think Jackson Dart will become a good quarterback if he's developed correctly. And obviously with Malik Neighbors, you have a top tier weapon that I think could be a top 3 wide receiver in the NFL this year if things break the right way. So totally fair pick.
I agree with you on a lot of that. You make some great points. Ricky Pearsall, someone I really like too. So I tried to brush over him, but you're completely correct. Brian Ayuk is not destined to necessarily be that wide receiver one when he comes back. My best chance at making an argument and not getting flamed in the comments here is to just poke a little bit more uncertainty in this Rashee Rice profile, and that's that we haven't even seen a full season of elite production from him. We've seen that 4-game sample size to start the season last year, and we saw kind of him ramp up towards the end of the season last year, but we haven't seen a full season of production yet, and it's just that little bit of uncertainty. I think we're putting in permanent ink when maybe it should be pencil that he's going to be a wide receiver one. Not be too sure of ourselves on that one.
Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, because you're going to want to be here when we come back later in the season, revisit this trades. You can have some bragging rights over us if one of us got it wrong. Obviously, you're going to want to be here for that. But don't forget to like, subscribe for Dynasty content all season long. Really enjoyed getting this out for you guys today. Let us know what you think in the comments with your votes on each other trade like we said before. But yeah, we're Dynasty Trading Room.